is enough. That man has no honor.
No honor. You shot me in the back, you bastard.
Gentlemen, you should save your energy for the game. You must be extremely dismayed, Mr. Valentine, at the waste of Arrakis.
That, sir, is an outrage. That is unacceptable. I pay for the privilege of killing these animals, not watching them take out their own. I demand you put that man back in.
I shall appease you this once.
What is real? How do you define real? If you're talking about what you can feel, what you can smell, what you can taste and see, then real is simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain.
Have you ever been in an institution? Cells.
Cells.
Do they keep you in a cell? Cells.
Cells.
When you're not performing your duties, do they keep you in a little box? Cells.
This causes it. This causes it. This causes it. Information overload. All the electronics around you poisoning the airwaves.
You are listening to the High Tech Low Life podcast, a cyberpunk media retrospective. High Tech Low Life contains themes and language not suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello and welcome to Cyber Vengeance of the Week with your hosts Eric and Josh. I'm Eric.
I'm Josh.
Here we watch a random episode of Cyber Vengeance every week for the rest of our lives and commentate on it for your listening pleasure.
That we do.
That we did.
Yeah.
Just kidding. It's High Tech Low Life podcast. I wanted to just shout out the name of the film we're watching at the top because it's a doozy.
I think doozy is a way to describe it. Yeah.
It's definitely up there with Neuromancer and Ghost in the Shell and Blade Runner and all the biggies of the genre we've chosen to follow.
It definitely is. I am so looking forward to watching the sequel.
Oh yeah, we absolutely have to. We're gonna get into it in a second. It's a movie that you probably haven't watched and probably never will watch.
And is very difficult to watch. The only source we found was some sort of fucking Russian pirate site.
Yeah, we'll get into that. We'll get into that when we get into the meat of this episode. It was a whole debacle. But first, let's talk current events. I have one I wanted to bring up.
Okay. Why don't you go with that, and then we'll see where we go from there.
Okay. Because I believe it's since our last recording, but I think it was last week. And I feel it's relative to our audience. Wizards of the Coast raided a dude's house.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like...
Yeah, use the Pinkertons of all fucking people.
Yeah. I feel like that's pretty dystopian, right?
I mean, yeah, I'd say so.
Private corporation hiring a security company to raid a dude's house and get their merch back. Their IP, whatever the fuck. Sounds very Shadowrun.
Yeah, I didn't exactly understand. Like, I didn't read too deeply into it. So I'm not sure I entirely understand what they raided his house for. It was magic cards, I guess.
From what I did listen to a podcast that kind of went over it. A guy went to, for one thing, there was some confusion with the naming of the newest. I don't play Magic, so I don't know, but whatever they call it, the newest release of the newest deck or whatever. Okay. Expansion, maybe.
Sure.
And it's got a very similar name to like a smaller like promo expansion that they recently released. I think I'm not a journalist, don't quote me on this, but there was some name confusion. So when the dude asked for this promo release, the person at the shop who had already received the new actual expansion or whatever gave him the wrong one, and he took it home, and he was a YouTuber, so he started doing his YouTube thing and exploring what he had found, and it wasn't ready to be released yet. So Wizards of the Coast did the level-headed intelligent thing of calling him and asking him to please return the property and maybe giving him some nice gifts for his trouble. No, that's actually wrong. They hired a private security agency to raid his house.
Yeah. One thing that really, I don't know, a thing that really continually kind of surprises me, just every once in a while, is that the literal goddamn Pinkertons still exist.
I know.
It's, I mean, because my maternal grandfather was born in West Virginia, like mining country. He literally worked in the mines when he was 12, because his dad died. And long story. So, in my personal viewing of history, it's that Pinkertons and the other major private detective agencies, who all worked, mine strike breaking and stuff,
The FBI. Yeah.
are the absolute worst people on the planet,
Right.
and should not be allowed to live. And so in my mind, well, obviously everybody knows that a Pinkerton is should be tarred, feathered, have their throat cut, and sent out of town on a rail.
Right. It's like hearing that the church sent the Spanish Inquisition into a guy's house to cut off his fingers for sinning against God. It's
Yeah.
a really weird anachronism that apparently is still around.
Yeah, but at the same time, I'm like, well, obviously they're still around. I mean, it's
Right.
not like capital has lost power in the past 100 years.
Right. Yeah.
But it's just, I just can't get it through my head that this is a going concern. So every 2 years they pop up in the news and I go, really? Oh yeah, Jesus Christ.
You'd think they would have at least rebranded.
You would think, but man, that brand is strong if you want to, fuck over labor.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. From what I've heard, they're owned by a Swiss company now, or some European company. But yeah, it's weird. All I know of the Pinkertons is from Deadwood. So,
yeah,
I mean,
they're bad. Yeah,
and
bad
then,
on there too.
I've heard about the strike breaking stuff too. Obviously.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's fucking weird that a corporation deployed them on a citizen, and I don't know how that can happen legally.
Well, legally it kind of can't, but there's the realm of legally, and then there's the realm of legally if you have enough lawyers to defend yourself.
I mean, it's really mind-boggling. Like, Wizards of the Coast just got out of some really bad PR stuff and got out of it by the skin of their fucking teeth.
Yeah.
And then they went this route. Like, it's really nuts to me. I really feel like they could have called the guy and be like, hey, we're going to give you free Magic cards for 10 years, or, we're going to, I don't know. They could have buttered this guy up. He would have given the stuff back, and they would have, I don't get it, man.
Well, also, I wonder about assuming that what you said earlier is accurate.
Yeah, please take it with a grain of salt.
If it was literally a matter of the cards had already been shipped to the store, but I don't know, they weren't supposed to be released until Thursday at midnight.
Right.
But they showed up at the store on Monday or something and then got handed to the guy. I mean, that happened with I don't know, the last Harry Potter books.
Happens all the time.
Yeah, it's not, and I don't, maybe there's something specific about magic that makes it I don't know, super advantageous or something, but
I think it's that they, I mean, I'm not in,
or is it just our cultural psychosis about spoilers?
That's part of it. I'm not in the magic world, but for a while I was in the Hearthstone world, which is similar. And they, although it's all digital, but their new releases, they do them 2 or 3 times a year, but they're big deals. They hype it up.
Yeah.
It's a huge, they individually trickle these cards out over weeks and weeks to build hype. And so having them all dumped on a YouTube channel ahead of time I would think would really destroy a lot of time and effort and money spent on advertising. That'd be my guess.
Okay, I can see that as an angle, but at the same time, if it's early enough to have it at the fucking store,
Right.
I mean, that I don't know about fucking WotC's supply chain logistics, but I can't imagine that they're that fucking on top of it.
There's probably an answer out there if we cared enough to look into it, but we are not a journalism podcast. We're a couple of dicks commentating on the news.
And we are not goddamn magic dorks.
No, we're not magic dorks. Dorks of many stripes, but never that one. Although I think if I'd actually I tried to play the Shadowrun CCRG, didn't like it. I tried the Star Wars one.
Yeah, we gave both of those a shot back in 1997.
Yeah, like I said, I did like Hearthstone, but that's because it was digital and so much easier to play because they set everything up for you. You don't have to like lay out cards on a mat, and it's just easier. Anyway, that's probably all we need to dedicate to that. I just think it's fascinating, and I don't know how. Like, nobody I've heard talk about it has said, like, can they just do that and get away with it? Can this guy sue them for busting into his fucking house? Can they, like, he didn't commit a crime. He didn't do anything wrong. I'm curious how it shakes out in the end. We'll probably never know because that won't be as exciting a story as this.
Yeah, Pinkertons kick a door down in fucking 2023.
I think we should just stop playing D&D, right, guys? It's time. There's a lot of other games, a lot of very cool companies doing things right. Like, let's just...
Shout out to Kevin Crawford.
Amen. Let's just hang that up on the shelf until Wizards of the Coast. I was call it Wizards. That's what it... No, that was... WizKids LLC is who used to own Shadowrun.
Who bought Shadowrun, yeah.
Anyway.
And then God knows who owns them now.
And then Wizards Records and Tapes was the CD shop in our town back when we were in high school.
CDs, zines.
Probably drugs.
Yeah, well, paraphernalia.
Definitely paraphernalia.
I remember they sold VCR head cleaner.
Yeah.
That was...
for cleaning your VCR heads.
Yeah.
Shout out to Wizards Records and Tapes. I miss you.
Wonder if they still exist.
Bought a lot of incense there.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so let's move on. Recommendos. You got any? I actually don't. I've only been watching Ted Lasso. That's really it.
Okay. I do, in fact. I've continued watching that Mrs. Davis show.
Mm-hmm.
I think the 5th episode came out, and it continues to be good.
Okay.
Not cool, like not cyberpunk, but has a couple of cyberpunk themes.
Sure.
So yeah, that's continued to be weird and good. There's a huge subplot about British Knight sneakers. So if you remember those from like 1991.
Not at all.
Yeah, they existed for about 2 years. Never owned a pair, but they were hot shit.
1991.
Like right around the same time like Z Cavaricis were hot.
I remember that name. I remember them being pants though. Weren't Z Cavaricis pants?
Z Cavs were pants, and you had to tight roll.
Oh, I remember tight rolling.
Yeah.
I remember my stepdad making fun of me for that, but I thought I was cool.
Yeah. That sounds right.
In retrospect, he was correct. I was not cool.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, so let's see. Continue to watch that. I don't know if you ever watched it. I know I recommended it on one of the old shows, the Bridget Everett program, Somebody Somewhere.
Yes, I did watch that. I liked it.
Yes.
I'm going to start the next one probably tomorrow.
Yeah, second season started like a week and a day ago or something like that. And the first episode's good. And I'm not surprised because it's a good show.
They represent Manhattan, Kansas well.
Yeah, I mean, better than it deserves, probably.
Probably, yeah.
It is still Manhattan.
Not shot there, though, right?
I think they do a little bit of shooting there, but I think most of it's in like Illinois or something, if I remember right.
A lot of Kansas representation on TV these days. It's weird.
Is there? I'm trying to think of what else.
Ted Lasso, he talks about it fucking constantly.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
I don't know if you are caught up on it. There's a scene where he goes to a American restaurant. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was just a lot of Kansas shit.
Yeah, that is true. I sort of lose sight of the fact that it's constantly referencing Kansas shit.
Yeah.
I think partially because it does it so often that Melissa doesn't feel the need to call it out anymore.
Yeah, it's pretty constant.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I also have a potential recommendo. A new book came out that I've started, and I think I'm a little over halfway through.
Boring. Moving on.
It's cyberpunk.
Okay, you have my attention.
Yeah. It's by a woman named Lavanya Lakshminarayan.
Okay, give you a second chance if you'd like.
Lavanya Lakshminarayan.
Okay,
sure.
That sounds good.
Let's go with that. It's called The 10% Thief, and it is in the future where there are corporate cities set up in the climate and apocalyptic destruction of, I don't know, probably 150 years in the future, something like that. And the whole thing with these corporate cities is that it's all laid out demographically in percentages. So every, I think, year, 10%, the bottom performing 10% of the population gets kicked out.
Kicked out
to live in the borderline apocalyptic wasteland around the big cool tech cities.
Okay.
So
sounds like a plotline of Neo Scum, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I could see that.
The Neo New Mexico Technopolis.
Yeah. It's pretty good so far. I haven't it's got an interesting structure in that every chapter is a different character than, or at least so far, than has been seen before. Which there are a couple of chapters that are just fucking beautiful and heartbreaking. But I'm not sure and it's a really interesting world and kind of how everything is set up, but I'm not sure how there's plot humming along in the background, and I'm not sure how well it's going to come together in the very end, but it's good so far. Recommend
the first half.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see. Tune in next week to see if he recommends the whole book.
Yes. I recommend, even if it just descends into utter dog shit as of like this minute, I will firmly recommend this book more than I recommend Cyber Vengeance.
Oh, nice segue. I didn't hate it as much, so I don't know if I recommend Cyber Vengeance, but I was not. I was expecting to be more disappointed, to put it that way.
It was not as bad as it could have been.
And I think it's hard to argue, even though it was jumping throughout history. There was parts that took place in World War II, the Civil War, like bootlegging times. I still think it was pretty cyberpunk. I would say it was more cyberpunk than Universal Soldier for sure.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And I would also argue it had more to say on like a political level than Alita Battle Angel.
Okay. I don't know if I would go that far. It definitely surprised me in that it had the beginnings of a thesis and some questions.
Yeah.
That it was asking. But, okay.
So since nobody could have, I mean, with the exception of Mike the Sailing Guy, obviously, who is the all-knowing one.
Yes.
Nobody's going to have heard of this. So let's do just a quick synopsis before we run through it.
Okay, quick synopsis. According to, I don't remember.
Oh yeah, do we have like an IMDb page to read or something?
I do. I think, okay, this was not, I don't think this was from the IMDb, but I have a synopsis here.
Okay, cool.
Cyber Vengeance, 1997. Although it's actually 1995. It wasn't released until 97.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The year is 2005. The prison system is run by the private sector. Business tycoon R.D. Crowley has created a virtual reality prison. The prisoners' bodies are locked in suspended animation while their minds traverse the lethal labyrinth of games Crowley designed for them. Crowley allows wealthy sportsmen to participate, for a price, in deadly VR combat with the prisoners. Will breaks into the prison and attempts to eradicate the VR technology.
Sort of. It's not really
Seduced, seduced by his VR girlfriend, he becomes addicted to VR.
That's also not accurate.
Yeah. Will is caught and thrown into the lethal time-traveling web of Crowley's virtual hunt. With their lives at stake, Will and the prisoners must escape certain death and destroy the VR prison.
That's true, but Will was not seduced by his VR girlfriend. He was basically just jerking off to VR porn.
I think you are doing a huge disservice to this film and the main guy's performance when you describe what he was doing as jerking off.
Oh man, we have an episode. We watched this for the Patreon. Hope probably not. Maybe it'll be out by now. For patrons, and it'll probably come out next month for non-patrons. I'll use it to fill some of the time while Josh is gone and we can't record new stuff. It's a crazy movie.
It is, yes.
It's very cheesy, very like made for TV, straight to VHS type stuff.
But with tits.
Well, yeah, there's definitely a lot of boobs. And man, there's some weird shit. I don't know why I'm remembering it more fondly than the experience when we were watching it, which I do remember feeling like I was being tortured, but now that I'm looking back, maybe I got a little Stockholm syndrome. I don't know.
Look, it's not without its charms.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, it is, okay, literally everything about this movie is incompetent.
Yes.
Like, there is not a single thing you can point at and say, that's really good.
Right.
Like, the closest thing to that is Terry Serpico and Robert Davi.
Robert Davi, I don't know, take or leave him in this particular.
He's doing exactly what's asked of him. He earned, $200,000 to spend an afternoon sweating in a bank lobby.
Sweating. We need to point that out too.
Yes.
Wherever they recorded this was so fucking hot. Everybody is sweating constantly.
Dripping sweat.
Robert Davi is so wet. And Will as well. The main character, Will, is just constantly drenched.
Yeah. We're in a number of scenes. We're in billionaire R.D. Crowley, Robert Davi's fancy marble office, and he is just like dripping onto his desk.
It's so strange.
It's very weird.
Let's get into it. We're trying to keep this to a tight 90, and we're already waxing philosophical. Let's start our recap. I'm sure we'll have more to say.
Okay, so instant one. A gargoyle turns into a dork.
Yes. I guess we do need to point out how our debacle about finding this. So,
yeah,
this movie is like credited in different places under the between its name, Cyber Vengeance, and its sequel's name. What was the sequel called? Total Annihilation? No, that's a
Absolute Annihilation.
Yeah, something like that.
I think. Yeah, it's 2 A's.
We'll know when we cover it.
Yeah.
And they're like mixed up a lot on a lot of the streaming. So the Roku app told us this was streaming on Tubi and Vudu. It is not. Its sequel is streaming. So since we'd already committed, we had to go digging to find this thing. And I did find it on a sketchy website that I can't recommend anybody go search out.
It's Absolute Aggression.
Absolute Aggression, that's right.
Yeah.
If you Google the name of the film and then scroll down a little bit, you will find the website we used to watch it, and my computer seems to be safe. And plus, enough time passes, that website might not be around anymore.
Yeah, when I was doing my rewatch, I did it fully VPN'd and in a private browsing window with cookies turned off, and like I did as much firewalling as I could.
Yeah, it was sketchy, but I mean, sketchiness aside, pretty good viewing experience, high quality, and no commercials or anything like that. So
Yeah, the quality wasn't bad. No commercials. I did find it in my rewatch, as I told you earlier. I did some kind of skipping ahead. Like, okay, I remember this part. And it would pretty regularly, like, you know, if I skipped 5 minutes ahead, just lock up and I'd have to reload and then go back to it. But it was never a problem for more than, you know, me hitting the refresh button.
yeah, well, that's the story of it. Like, you're probably not gonna be able to watch it. So hopefully, hopefully us talk. I don't know. What are we doing this episode? It's stupid. We wanted to do a bad movie, and we're doing one.
Apparently, it was released on Blu-ray several
Really?
years ago. Yes, it's I can't remember the name. I can't remember the name of the company that released it, but it's some little small company, and I got the impression. And then I was doing research about the film,
Yeah,
obviously.
that's what we do here.
Yeah, and I suspect that it was released by that company on Blu-ray because, you know, the guy who owns the company was 15 and saw this on Skinamax and jacked off to it.
Probably.
I mean, you know, and remembers it as, you know, oh yeah, that was really cool. It's not good, but it's really cool. So
it's not good enough to have a cult following.
No.
But I think it could have hit that status if a little more talent on the filmmaker's part had been involved, put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a pretty fair. Okay, let's get back. Okay,
Yeah,
so
sure.
A gargoyle turns into a dork. There's a stone gargoyle, and then using some extremely cool 1993 morphing technology.
Like
this
Michael
gargoyle,
Jackson video.
Yeah, this gargoyle turns into the main character, whose name is Will. He's wearing a black, is it a gi?
Yeah,
That's
I
a
think so.
karate getup?
Yeah.
He's wearing a black gi. And he has to kung fu a bunch of guys dressed up as barbarians and some other karate guys.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there were some ninjas.
Yes, I believe so.
To stop a princess from having a fire dropped on her head. It was, even on my second watch, I couldn't exactly figure out what the danger was and why it was so hard to stop.
I'll set the scene. Our hero's ally is holding a burning bucket of pitch or lava, molten steel, some hot bucket of liquid,
which has spikes on the bottom.
Yeah, he's holding it over a princess's face as she screams. He is stopping it from pouring. The bucket, if left to its own devices, would be pouring on her face. But the ally is stopping it as it is burning, singeing the flesh from his hands. And the goal of this game, as it turns out to be, a virtual reality game, is for Will to fight through all the bad guys and then go to assist his friend or save the princess before the bucket dumps.
Yes. The thing that's confusing about it is that it doesn't seem that there is anything stopping the ally from moving the bucket slightly to the right or left.
No, there's nothing. I mean, even from what I saw, if he just let go of it, it's not going to spill. It's just going to hang there. But we're supposed to suspend disbelief.
Yes.
I don't know.
And Will loses a fight to a barbarian. The barbarian being played by a guy named Matthias Hughes.
Yeah, that's one thing about this movie. Like, it's super low budge, but most people in it were in other shit. Like, they worked pretty regularly. Like, maybe not most, but a lot of them.
Yeah, several of them. Yeah, Matthias Hughes has been in and is still in tons and tons and tons of shit. He's
got a lot coming out this year.
Yeah, a lot of B and C movies.
I recognized his face when I saw it.
Yeah, he's a big, he's a big muscly German martial arts guy.
Yeah,
and
he beats Will's ass.
Yes. He's also wearing a necklace made out of ribeye steak ribeyes.
Yep. And an
It's-
actual loincloth.
Yeah. So yeah, he beats Will's ass. Will loses the fight. The princess dies. Will logs out.
I guess we should
and-
point out that the actor who plays him, J. Gregory Smith, has not been in anything ever other than this and the sequel, I believe.
This, the sequel, and then like 2 other movies directed by the same guy.
Yeah.
I tried to do some research on J. Gregory Smith. Was pretty unsuccessful. It turns out there's an author named J. Gregory Smith, but it's not the same guy. As far as I can tell, the J. Gregory Smith only exists in these films.
Oh, that's cool.
And like
Perhaps he's artificial. He's an AI.
possibly. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
This movie gets more cyberpunk by the second.
And this will be a recurring theme with many of the people in this film.
Okay.
They just cease to exist at a certain point.
Well, so once Will jacks out of his virtual reality experience, he's in like a room, right?
Yeah. Then he makes a video Reddit post complaining about how the giant barbarian guy used, I think it was Drunken Master style.
Yeah.
Which is 2,000 years too late to be used in that simulation, and it's supposed to be very accurate.
This is where we find out that Will is a actually man.
Yeah, and it's also mentioned, and I didn't catch this the first time, that this is not his first complaint.
Yeah.
About this game this week.
Yeah, he's basically calling. It seems to be he's calling like this is a beta or something, and he's doing a video call with the, I don't know, the helpline or the.
Yeah.
He's contacting the creators somehow.
The Nintendo helpline, yes.
Yeah. He's a nerd.
Yeah. So then his girlfriend comes home, and they're having hot sex on the couch, which is the second pair of tits within the first 6 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, you see the princess's boobs, and then you see this young woman's boobs.
Yeah. And then you find out, he's actually doing this in VR again.
Yeah, he's fucking in VR.
And it is very hot.
Very sensual.
This guy is lying face down on the couch, up on his elbows.
Okay. So hold on. They cut from a sensual. There's even like a '90s sexy sax song playing. This hot girl and they're mid coitus, and then it like aggressively cuts to Will on the couch in his full VR getup,
which involves suction cups on his upper chest. I'd note,
face down on a couch, holding himself up by his elbows, and just like rhythmically thrusting his hips into the couch.
Just hammering into the couch.
Come on, you gotta admit, this is fucking funny. If any cyberpunk movie we watched did this, we would be laughing.
It is extremely funny, and also, what? Because I don't, there is not a lot of humor in this movie.
No.
So I don't necessarily think that was funny. I think that was just the take they had and moved on.
Oh, I think it was intentional. I think it was intentionally funny. It had to be. That's too humorous watching Will drilling the couch cushions.
Yeah.
But the funny thing, another funny thing is his actual girlfriend walks in on him engaged in this activity.
Yes.
We've got it mastered. We're already taking too long.
Yeah, and she's like, okay, you can't be doing this anymore, and makes him delete the fucking Nintendo cartridge.
You're fucking gross, Will. His girlfriend, played by Susan Misner, who actually has been in a lot of shit. If you IMDb her, she's got a long list, and she's got a recognizable face too. This was her first film, though, I believe.
Yes, I some kind of back of the envelope math. I have probably seen like 50 episodes of television that she's been in.
Yeah, she's a lot of TV.
Yeah. And in this scene, we set up big plot in the background as he starts doing VR kung fu while his girlfriend watches very disapprovingly.
Yeah.
On the news in the background, it's showing a merger between Robert Davi's company
Which is the VR company he's playing games for.
yes, and John Early's company.
It's not actually John Early. It's a guy that we decided while watching it half drunk that looked kind of like the comedian John Early.
Yes, who is also, I didn't realize this, the director.
Oh, are you serious?
Yep.
J. Christian Ingvardson. It is the director. Well, good for him.
Yep. So
wow,
that's
he gave
pretty
himself
exciting.
a really detestable role.
Yeah, he is a real piece of
He's
shit.
a bad dude.
Yeah. Okay, so then we go to Will's job where everybody wears white Carhartts.
Literally Carhartts, logo visible.
Except we don't see that at first. We cut to a Civil War prison.
This movie is fucking bonkers.
Yeah. Okay, so he's like a guard in the Civil War prison. He and this fucking Dominican friar for some reason take a dude to execution, or that's what it seems like. A guy sings John Brown's Body, which hammers home this is the Civil War. Then we find out that all these prisoners are not in a Civil War prison. They are just lying on tables with tubes in their throats.
Yeah, and this is all virtual. This is a virtual reality prison.
Yeah, and Will is like an empathic guard who is like talking to people, including the guy he's clearly in love with, whose name I don't remember. I just refer to him for my notes.
Iowa.
I just refer to him in my notes as Best Shot in Iowa or BSII.
BS. Oh yeah, was that Stuart Lewis, played by Josh Mosby, who's done nothing else?
Yes, that is exactly it.
Well, Josh Mosby's been in a few things, not enough to get himself a picture.
He has been in a bunch more J. Christian Ingvardson.
He's also done some voiceover, it looks like.
Yeah, one or two things that I recognized, like anime voiceovers. So then we follow that prisoner that they executed. He's being hunted by a guy with a saber, and they're just running around. They're both wearing Union uniforms for some reason. He's being hunted by a guy with a saber who kills him.
Yeah.
And this is after we've shown a scene of some sexy lady scientists inserting a chip in the guy that we thought was going for execution.
Yeah, so when Will says goodbye, he basically describes what's going to happen, and the guy walks kind of into a weird screen effect. It looks like he's just ceasing to exist, and I think Will thinks that's the end. That's how they die. But what happens after, then they cut to these doctors, and he's getting a new chip in his brain, and then he finds himself in the Civil War battlefield being hunted.
Yes.
So you realize things aren't what they seem.
Yeah. So then we see another prisoner. He goes to the opening scene of Universal Soldier.
Basically Vietnam War reenactment.
Yeah. Then Will finds out that his boyfriend, the Best Shot in Iowa, is being transferred. So he's going to stay late and investigate what exactly goes on.
Will really likes this Stu Lewis, who honestly, Stu's one of the, I like them as a character too. But they have they play like a word game together, so they kind of bond.
It's a really weird word game.
It is. I couldn't figure out how it worked. And then while they're doing it, they're being mocked by other prisoners, particularly a prisoner named Baracus.
Yes.
Who we should introduce.
Yes. He is the guy who was singing John Brown's Body. He is apparently a psycho guy, and he has, I don't know, a prison cell roughly the size of the first floor of my house.
Yeah, he's got a very big prison cell.
With like 18 beds in it. But he's apparently a psycho. It turns out this guy is also, he has a much bigger career as an armorer.
Yeah.
Like he rents weapons to movies.
Seems like that's his main gig.
Yeah.
And he rented them to the Godzilla movie directed by the guy who directed Universal Soldier. So there's a link back to a previous.
There we go. Yeah, so he shows up and we're like, wow, that guy's a scumbag.
Not from what I'm looking, the armor on. Never mind, that's a dark joke. I probably shouldn't go there.
Rust?
Yeah, not the armor on
Nope.
Rust.
Nope, he is not. As I recall, he doesn't have any credits since about 2012.
Yeah, but he's got a lot of them before that on some big movies
Yeah.
like Requiem for a Dream and stuff.
Yeah. So Will follows the body, ends up in Robert Davi's office. Robert Davi being the CEO of Private Prison.
Mm-hmm.
Then we cut to...
Oh, wait, is Robert Davi the CEO of the prison or the game company?
I believe it's both.
What
It's
about
not...
John Hurley?
That is not clear.
Okay. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. Could have used... Okay, one thing I'll say for this movie, it could have used about 10 more drafts to streamline and add clarity.
Yeah, I agree.
So then we cut to Stu doing Scottish sword fighting, like in kilts.
Right. Yeah. I almost forgotten that scene.
Yeah, it's very short. He has a GM weather pack connector stuck to the back of his neck.
So to be clear, Stu, as we've established, BFFs with Will, possibly something romantic. His death sentence is to become a Scottish fight in a Scottish Highlander situation.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
And then Will shows up, and there are 3 guys and Robert Davi. The 3 guys are just standing there. Well, one of them's in a wheelchair. Robert Davi is sitting behind a desk. They're all wearing VR headsets, as is Stu, who is sitting on the other side of the room.
Yeah.
And Will just stands there. And then Robert Davi notices him after he unplugs the thing from the back of Stu's neck to end the game.
Right, jacks him out.
And Robert Davi says, it took you long enough. And it turns out that Will is just the best player of games.
We're rushing a lot of the detective shit that Will did to find his way up here. It's really unimportant, so I'm glad we rushed through it.
It's not even detective shit. It's literally following a stretcher. I mean,
yeah. But God, it felt a lot longer. I can't believe we're at this point in the movie already. It felt like 2 different movies to me. Like the beginning felt like a cyberpunk prison movie, and now we're going to get into the second half of the movie, which gets real wild.
Yes. So it turns out that Robert Davi is, as the synopsis said, is using his comatose prisoners to fight rich guys, because that they're better opponents than the computer. But when the prisoners die in the game, they actually die.
Sort of.
It's implied that they actually die if they die in the game. But they can be
brought back too.
Yeah. And then it turns out that Will's girlfriend is Sharon Stone in Total Recall.
Is that already? Is that revealed already?
That's right then.
So
that's before we have introduced the 3 guys.
Will is the chosen one. He's been chosen by Robert Davi as the best player of VR games to come and compete against these fucking rich dudes.
And apparently this plan has been in the works for some time, because apparently he lives with his girlfriend, who was the whole time Robert Davi's spy.
Yeah, it's been... He definitely got Sharon Stone in Total Recall.
Yes. Okay, so then we're introduced to the guys.
I just want to take a quick break and are you guys following us? Is this making sense?
I mean, if it's not, that's okay.
If it feels a little bit like a fever dream, it did for us while we were watching it too.
Yeah, and it didn't help watching it again.
Yeah, Josh has watched it twice. I did not, thankfully. And now he gets to talk about it, so it's kind of like watching it a third time.
Yeah, it's exactly like it. with roughly equivalent production quality.
Very true. I don't know. Maybe we should stick to stuff people have heard of. I don't know. This was an experiment. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. Okay, so we get introduced to three guys who are going to be fighting Will and Stu. Dietrich, who is the guy who looks kind of like John Early, played by the director, is a German industrialist who apparently his company destroyed the environment. We'll find out why that's important later.
He's in a wheelchair.
He is in a wheelchair. And yeah, played by the director. I don't know.
Apparently, you're right.
Yeah. Montgomery Valentine is a character actor named Terry Serpico, who is great. He has the mustache of a fucking twat.
Yeah, like the mustache of a villain in a 1920s silent film.
Yeah,
and he's literally twirling it all the time. Like it is not subtle.
Yeah, and he has fucking blonde hair and like he looks like he was born to play Custer.
Yeah, he looks like Custer, absolutely. And
yeah,
I also want to point out, like, for me, and I think for you, the highlight of this film, pretty much dead on.
Yes, yeah, 100%.
I feel like he knew what was happening, and he's like, I'm gonna just have a fucking good time with this bad movie, and it seemed like he was.
Yeah, he clearly knew the assignment better than literally anyone else.
Right.
Like, he is doing a horrible, horrible foghorn leghorn accent.
Yes, he is.
He's talking about, I fight a man with honor.
Yes.
Like, it is ridiculous. I mean, I totally see watching this movie, and this was very early in his career. You can totally see why. Okay, yeah, this guy has continued to work super consistently in like big and small stuff for the past 30 fucking years. I mean,
it's clear he knew what was required of him, and he fucking delivered.
Yeah. And then there's a guy named, I think it's Traven, who is Will's boss.
Yeah.
And he kind of looks like Stifler. And
looks like Stifler.
Just sucks.
I believe in the rewatch, I also thought he looked a lot like Ben Shapiro.
Yeah.
Like if Stifler fucked Ben Shapiro, if you really want a visual. It's hot.
And yeah, real hot. Yeah, and he just kind of generally sucks.
Yeah, he's been like Josh didn't get into it, but he's kind of been harassing Will this whole time.
Yeah.
Telling him that he sucks and just being a general douchebag.
Yeah, and we'll find out later that the thing he likes in these games is getting up close.
Yeah.
So, and they've all paid in to hunt and kill Will and Stu. So then we do a hard cut to the French and Indian War.
Yep.
Where Stifler is wearing a dyed black Raggedy Ann wig, dressed.
Oh my god! I forgot.
Yeah, I fully gasped this when I was watching it today. I was like, "Oh god!" I had completely forgotten. This movie has enough shit going on after the fact that you forget it is like it might just be black yarn.
It is. It clearly was. It was a doll wig.
Yeah, this guy spends like a good 15 minutes of the movie in a Raggedy Ann wig, dressed up like Daniel Day-Lewis in Last of the Mohicans. I mean, it is
dressed up like a Spirit Halloween.
Yes, yeah,
Daniel Day-Lewis costume. In Last of the Mohicans,
swinging a plastic gun butt club.
It is offensive.
Yeah, it is. Both embarrassing and offensive.
Yeah.
So we find out, because this is where it turns out Will has a superpower. He knows history, and it's been mentioned before. I think I maybe skipped over that part.
Yeah, well, it's set up in the very first scene, but this is when it's like Will really knows this shit.
Yeah, he knows all sorts of history and how to fly planes and tanks and whatever. So Yeah, he knows history, so
He's truly
they.
Neo. Like, I think
Yeah,
the concept of Neo was stolen from
that
Will
seems right.
Singleton.
Yeah. What was the other thing we saw? We saw that got stole for the Matrix.
Ghost
Oh,
in the
Ghost
Shell?
in the Shell.
Yeah.
The Ghost in the Shell climax. Um,
So, yeah, Matrix. What are you doing?
we're coming for you.
Eventually, we'll get to you.
We will. So then there's this chase where the rich guys and Raggedy Ann are chasing Will and Stu. They go into a fort. Will and Stu defeat the rich guys with playground tricks. Um, very literally, Will props his hat and fucking wig on the end of his rifle, and when I think that was Mustache Guy shoots it and charges and runs up, Will pops up from behind the wall, and it turns out that it was just on his rifle, and he shoots Mustache Guy.
Classic
Yeah.
Bugs Bunny situation.
Yeah.
You're also skipping over some important world building, because this is where we learned that Stu is from, I believe he said, the last farm in Iowa or something.
Yes.
And he is also the best shot in Iowa.
Also, he killed federal agents.
Yeah, he was in prison because he killed federal agents who were raiding I can't remember, raiding the farm for some reason, killed his dad or something.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly it. We don't go into the whole Waco aspect of it.
No.
It's just implied.
It is. But yeah, so I mean, we get a little glimpse of the outside world. There's like,
yeah,
the world's in pretty rough shape.
Yeah. And then Stu kills the Stifler guy he is chased around a corner into a dark hall, and Stifler, because he's an offensive Indian stereotype, shoots an arrow at him, and you hear, because he's just like, he shoots just as he's going around the corner, and you hear, "Ugh!" And then Stu comes back out, and he's got the arrow sticking out of his chest, and he's stumbling. And there's also a really horrible scene where Stifler scalps a guy.
Yeah, it's offensive.
Yeah, there is nothing redeeming about that part.
No,
at all. So Stifler comes up to scalp him, and it turns out that he's just holding the arrow in his armpit.
Yeah,
it's just fake, and he shoots him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The old gun, the old wig on the gun, and then the old arrow in the armpit. Never fails. These rich guys are easy to trick.
It's not great. Yeah. So then we do a hard cut to Robert Davi staring at like 5 twitching guys and sweating.
Yes, that's when you realize that as all this shit is happening in virtual reality, Robert Davi is just sitting there, chain smoking cigars, lighting one after the other,
cigars, yes,
and just sweating through multiple suits,
profusely sweating.
Guys, we cannot accurately describe how fucking wet everything was. This is like Joey's art stool. As Jack was describing art to her, it is soaked.
Yeah. I've watched Aquaman, and that movie was nowhere near this fucking wet.
It's not as moist as fucking Cyber Vengeance. Oh my god, they were so sweaty, and I don't know why.
Yeah, it is actively upsetting. You're staring at these guys going like, Jesus, man, get him some water. Fuck.
Dab his face before you yell action. Like, that's all it takes. They're just... Anyway, global warming, we'll call it that. I don't know.
Yeah, let's do that. Okay, so then we go to World War One. And
this is so they're going to be jumping around a lot in time. I believe this is the scene they spent the least money on. They like paid for the plane and the old timey tank, and then literally just stuck them in a field.
Counterpoint: 2 planes and an old timey tank, and like a number of explosions.
That take place over the horizon.
Yeah, not where the plane landed, but Okay, so yeah, Will and Stu are in a, I don't know, stop with camel or something. Um, the John Early guy is in a tank. He's shooting at him, and
Heinz Dietrich.
yes,
I,
Heinz
I don't.
Dietrich.
I feel really bad about besmirching John Early's name, who is a performer I enjoy watching.
Yes,
Heinz Dietrich is a piece of shit in a bad movie.
I think Early would probably get some amusement out of this.
maybe.
So yeah, they're in
he
a
does
plane.
always play pieces of shit too.
He really does. Yeah, recommend basically anything that John Early's in.
Yeah, he's very funny.
Yeah, so they're in a plane. Mustache is in a plane. I think Stifler was in another plane and like got wiped out immediately.
No, Stifler was in the tank.
Well, I thought John Early was in the tank.
You're right. Stifler was in the first plane.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're fighting the tank and the first plane at the same time, and then Terry Serpico comes in the triplane at the end.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
So they win again.
Yeah, they get fucking shot down.
Yeah, good guys win again.
It's really
Great.
bad effects. It's bad flying. It's bad everything. It's a terrible. It's the worst scene of a bad movie in my opinion.
Well, okay. So something that I will say for this movie, in my youth, not so much anymore, but in my youth, I saw a lot of cheaply made movies and bad movies. I could not find information about this movie's budget, but I really feel like they made the fucking most of it because I have seen movies that probably cost more, but they really threw a lot of okay, they've got the planes in this scene. Later we'll get to a shockingly large World War II
World
battle.
War II scene, yeah. I would not talk shit on that. That was pretty damn good for what they were working with.
Like, they are doing a surprising amount of fucking different locations and, all over the place. Lots of different setups.
Yeah.
So I cannot fault them for getting, they threw kind of a lot of money at the screen.
Yeah, even their interior scenes, like Robert Davi's marble office, looks like a rich guy's office. I mean, the cyberpunk stuff, like the set work is not bad. I do feel like this particular World War I scene, to me, they thought they could rest on the laurels of having some pretty cool old planes and an old tank, and they really did nothing else.
Yeah, I think they had more extras. I don't know.
Yeah,
that day, but so they do that. Let's see. Okay, where did we go?
Next, we're going to Prohibition.
Yes, next we go to Gangsters. Will and Stu instantiate in a fucking speakeasy. And we're also introduced to, excitingly, Psycho Guy, Baracus. He pops in.
They add him to the hunt for some fucking reason. I don't know. What was it? Well, obviously it wasn't too easy because the rich guys were getting wasted I don't remember why they added him.
There's a line where Monty, and I think it might have been between the French Indian War and World War I. Monty says something about multiple targets is fine fighting.
Oh yeah, they just wanted more people to kill.
Yeah. And one thing to get through all of this is that Monty is clearly having a great time and he's just enjoying this and is like a fucking douchebag. But he's like, I will fight you with honor and, that type of shit.
The other two, like Traven, the Stifler looking guy, it's like personal. He fucking hates Will and he wants to kill him. And then Heinz Dietrich is the guy in the wheelchair is just a psychopath who just wants to kill. Right?
Yes. And then we meet somebody else. The introduction of Nikki, who is the third main character who arrives. I think it was 56 minutes into the film.
Yeah. It's a cool
Um,
intro, though. I like the way
yeah.
they introduced her.
Yeah, she is
Well, let's set the scene a little bit. They're at like a speakeasy. There's a
Yeah.
cabaret show going on stage. Um, our two heroes are Stu and Will are sitting around a table trying to figure out their next move. They have a little exposition. They're like, we can't just go through these scenarios forever. We got to figure out how to get out of here. That's when Baracus shows up and he's like, hey, but this is virtual reality. We can do whatever we want. He just starts randomly, indiscriminately killing people.
Yeah.
And our heroes are like, well, that's kind of fucked up. You're a weirdo. Even if these are virtual people. And then the bad guys start a shootout in the middle of the speakeasy, and everybody runs backstage, and that's where we meet Nikki, who is a dancer, changing, of course, nude, of course. But as soon as people run backstage to mess with her, she just turns around and blasts one in the fucking face. It's pretty great.
Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
I think it's Traven. I think it's a Stifler looking dude. He gets shot in the face by Nikki as soon as he walks in the room.
Yeah. Yeah, it was fun and a surprise.
Yeah. So then when Baracus goes to waste her, she's like, wait, I'm a
prisoner too.
I'm not an NPC, I'm an actual prisoner. You find out she's a prisoner, I guess, she's not in the room with him at that, or maybe they wheeled her up.
They wheeled her in when the other guys were, I guess, because she's in the room later.
Yeah.
So yeah, then we go through, like, there's a bunch of shit on a train. Like they go through stopped train cars, another pretty good set piece.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so everything about this movie, like all the fight choreography, all the fucking shooting choreography sucks. It's very bad.
Yeah.
But
the dialogue
is not good. But they did go to a bunch of places to shoot this stuff, so good for them.
Yeah. I guess if we were going to give it one compliment, like most of the sets are pretty, like I was never yanked out of the movie because of the surroundings they were in, put it that way.
Okay, once we get into the beginning of the next scene, I was kind of yanked out. Okay. But, so yeah, there's this shootout in a train yard, whatever. It turns out
God, I'm realizing what you're saying. Yes, that yanked me out too.
Yeah. It seems that Hans Dietrich has some specific relation to the Nikki character. He momentarily takes her hostage and is making some noise about sexually assaulting her, and then he gets shot and the scene's over.
Nikki is actually a pretty cool character in the show, but she is mainly put here to be sexually assaulted over and over again.
Yeah. It happens twice in about 10 minutes, so that's not fun.
So, but she does hold her own when given the chance. So,
yeah, she does a good job of shooting at people.
Yeah.
So then we cut to the next scene, which is the Wild Wild West, and it is like it completely yanked me out of the movie as much as I might have been in it.
Yeah.
Because it is exactly like, and people in other regions of the country might not, probably don't have this experience, but about, I don't know, every 100 square miles or so throughout the plains and the West, there is a town that has, usually it's the remnants of an old downtown, maybe, that got moved to the edge of town at some point, probably the 30s. And it's all set up to basically bring school children and say, this is what the Wild West was like. And you get wooden nickels, and they've got a pen with some buffalo in them. And they might have a very bad fucking Wild West, Westworld or Waterworld stunt show. You can buy pony rides, and
a lot of them these days are set up in like whatever park the small town has.
Yeah.
They're just really bad Western style facades.
Yeah.
Attached on metal buildings usually.
Yeah. And that is exactly what it is. Which just immediately made me go, oh, fuck, it's Dodge City.
Well, Dodge City's a lot more realistic than the set these fucking people were using.
Yeah. So then it turns out that they're Billy the Kid. I don't know. I don't remember. Maybe
Yeah,
it's
they
the
were robbing a
James gang.
bank. They were some.
Yeah.
They were some gang. I'm sure Will could tell us. He's a fucking
Will
nerd.
does specifically say, "Oh, this is the raid on something Minnesota."
Yeah.
So yeah, Wild West shootout. We learn that we've at this point come to realize that Terry Serpico goes everywhere at like a crab walk crouch. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, he rules.
He also trips once, and they just kept it in.
He does trip and fall, and they left it in the movie.
It's fucking hilarious. He's clearly supposed to be running up and taking cover behind these barrels, and just fucking
just
eats it.
Plants into the barrel, and they just left it in. I want that film for two.
He just fucking beefs it.
So this starts the weirdest fucking scene. They spend like 25 minutes in a barn having various conversations that advance the plot.
We spend roughly 5 minutes in the western town,
right?
Including some time in a like fucking saloon filled with extras, and
it's like a Tombstone,
sex workers, and
homage. There's a lot of homage. They reference Star Wars in this movie, like more than a Kevin Smith movie almost. And this was in 95 or whatever, before it was cool to reference Star Wars.
So yeah, they spend like 5 minutes in the western town, and you're like, okay, sure, whatever. And then they spend like 25 minutes in a very large barn.
Yeah.
Like a really, really large barn.
Yeah, just having conversations while one of them shoots at Terry Serpico.
Yes.
One will be shooting at Serpico and the others will be talking, and then they'll like switch places. Someone else will shoot.
And then there will be a knife fight because Baracus decides he wants to sexually assault Nikki.
Yeah. It's bizarre. A lot of time passes in this barn as they just advance the plot with talking.
Yes. Oh yeah, and because of some offensive things he had said that had been said earlier, Terry Serpico shoots Stifler in the back.
Right, yeah, he shoots his fellow rich guy because he fought without honor.
Yes. And okay, this is the point at which so Baracus tries to sexually assault Nikki, and she kills him after a fight, and he also has a knife fight with Will, and like it's a whole thing.
Yeah.
It is at this point that we learn what Nikki is in prison for. And it is for attacking and attempting to kill, but only paralyzing Hans Dieter because his company destroyed the environment or something.
So we find out that Hans Dieter, he is in a wheelchair because Nikki put him in a wheelchair because he attempted to sexually succeeded in sexually assaulting her.
Mm-hmm.
Bad times.
Yeah. And Robert Davi had previously said, "I've got a little surprise for you in this next round, Mr. Dietrich."
Oh, that's when they brought her in. Okay.
Yeah. So then let's see. Okay, so then people die. I mean, rich guys die again. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. And Baracus dies too. It should be said, because the next between scenes where they cut back to Robert Davi's office, Baracus is on a gurney being wheeled out, and the rich guys are pissed off, and they're like, "Wait, we wanted to kill him. They can't kill themselves. That's not fun." And so Robert Davi's like, "Okay, we'll put him back in. I guess we'll resurrect him."
Because yes. So yeah, that happens, and then we go to the funnest place in all of history, the Eastern Front in World War II.
The greatest opening line.
And of note, our main characters, Will, Stu, and Nikki, and Baracus, are the Nazis.
Yeah.
They spend from now until the end of the movie in SS uniforms.
Yes, it's revealed as they're like trying to figure out where they are. They're like, and then they say, "We're goddamn Nazis."
Yeah.
It's pretty funny. And once again, I think it was written knowing that it would kind of be funny.
Yeah, I don't know. This movie, like I said, this movie needed like another 5 or 10 drafts.
Yeah, it's hard to tell
to
when it's
like
being intentionally funny.
yeah, to refine what the fuck is going on.
Now this scene or this whole thing actually looks pretty good. Like,
Yeah, the fact that it's all shot at night in pitch black is
Help.
doing it huge amounts of favors.
absolutely, but they've got a lot of military vehicles. They've got a lot of pyro going off. There's
Yeah.
tons of explosions that look legit. The
Bunches of assholes running around firing blanks.
a lot of extras. The uniforms, like the Civil War uniforms looked like garbage at the beginning of the movie, but these World War II uniforms look all right.
I kind of think that might simply be because the Civil War ones were all in broad daylight.
Yeah, very likely. But you
Uh,
immediately
but, yeah.
recognize the Red Army was
Yeah.
bearing down on these Germans. Not bad. Not a bad scene as far as
Yeah, I mean,
How it played out.
again, I feel like they got a lot for their money
yeah.
in this. So, okay, Nikki gets shot by Hans Dietrich, and it's at this point, and they've talked about it. They've talked about it a little bit. They need to get out of the game. So, how do they break the game? And they got a hint about it when Baracus shot all the people in the speakeasy.
Yeah.
Because the game started being like bloop, bloop, bloop. It has this water drop effect
Yeah.
when the game is rebooting or whatever.
Like the game doesn't like it when you basically do things that it wasn't programmed to accept.
Yeah.
Like
when
standard
it's,
historical things.
yeah. And when you're doing too much shit, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
So Will figures out there's no way we can win this battle. The Red Army has like 40 times the number of guys that we do. And the German commander just just wouldn't retreat. So Baracus says, oh, okay, cool. I can deal with this, and cuts the Nazi commander's throat.
Yeah.
Um,
Baracus, piece of shit, rapist, but does get things done.
yes. Did I say that Nikki got shot by Dietrich?
You did. Yeah, she is
Okay.
currently wounded, and they decide
Yeah.
they have to get her help or she'll die.
Yeah, they have to get back to across. I guess the Nazis are just being pinched at this point between the Red Army and the Americans.
Yeah.
So they have to get to American lines and surrender to get her some medical help.
Yeah. Which
so
they do, where they are assaulted by the Americans. Like, no, we're just in these uniforms.
yeah, we need medical help. And
Or listen to
Americans
our
were like,
accents. We're not Nazis.
Yeah. So they get her into a fucking MASH tent. Fucking radars there. I don't know. Then they decide, okay, now's the time to crash the game once they're getting her medical.
Well,
At which
the doctor
point,
did say she's I can't help her. She's pretty much done
Yeah.
for. And that's when they decide we got to crash the game.
Yeah. So they decide to crash the game. Oh yeah, and the game did the blue 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 thing when they killed the Nazi commander.
Yeah.
So they literally walk out of the tent and start killing everyone they see
Yeah.
and destroying everything they can see.
American, German, Russian, they just start mass murdering.
Yes. Let's see. Mustache and Baracus have a knife fight on a tank.
Yeah. Pretty dope.
Baracus wins the fight with his entrenching tool. So, the power of the shovel is strong.
Yeah. Josh stands up for shovels everywhere.
Hell yeah. The best shot in Iowa, artillery, some oil bunkers.
Yeah. That's true. He does.
Will kill Stifler on a different tank. And then as Dietrich is about to kill Will, Nikki shoots Dietrich in the face with the tank.
That's right. I was fully out of it by this point in the movie when we watched it, but yes, she does like swing a tank into his face and fires it as she's wounded and like clutching her guts.
Yeah. At which point, we exit the game. It's broken. Then immediately, like hard cut, people are like pulling off their VR masks, and Dietrich, I don't know, forgetting he's in a motorized wheelchair, screams, "Ah!" and charges Nikki, who reaches behind her to an ornamental set of armor and grabs a sword, and he motorized wheelchair impales himself on an ornamental sword. And then he backs up.
He does it in reverse.
Yeah. It is...
What Josh has just described sounds like nonsense that nobody would ever put to film. And that's what we witnessed when we watched it. It made no sense. He just wheelchaired himself into a sword and then went backwards on his wheelchair and fucked off into the corner to die.
He's just like, ah!
It's so fucking weird.
It is very bizarre. So,
oh, man.
Okay, then I am 100% certain that this last scene is first draft, best draft. Let's get it on film.
I think so, definitely.
Because it is actively confusing in both what's happening and the dialogue, like the action and the dialogue.
Yeah.
So
there's
Robert
like a couple Mexican standoffs that rotate, basically.
Yeah, it's confusing. So Robert Davi takes Nikki hostage, makes kind of a Darth Vader offer to Baracus.
Not kind of. It's pretty much a Darth. Like it's a straight up shout out to Empire.
Yeah. Then let's see. Stifler kills Mustache.
Yeah. R.I.P.
Yeah. R.I.P. Terry Serpico.
You were the best part of this film.
Yeah. Let's see. So Robert Davi and then some security bursts in, and Robert Davi basically makes the offer to, like, if you let Nikki and the best shot in Iowa go, Will can stay and, I guess, kill more prisoners?
He wants to keep Will in the game because Will is the best at the game. And he says, if you stay here, I will let all of your friends go and they'll go on and live their lives, but you have to stay and play the game. And Will's like, I think I can beat it. Go. Yeah. I'll sacrifice myself. I'll never be seen in another film again because I'll be stuck here in cyber vengeance forever.
Yes. Then we cut back to the barbarian from the beginning of the game.
Yep.
And that's the end of the movie, folks.
Whew.
I kept expecting, like, the barbarian to pop up as, I don't know, a Nazi commander or something.
Yeah, they really set the barbarian, like, at the very beginning, he tried a couple times to kill that barbarian and couldn't do it. And they made it be like that was going to be his metaphorical, once he defeats the barbarian, he's overcome his obstacles. But no, the ending is just like a 1 second shot of the barbarian's face. And then it cuts to the credits. Very strange.
Yeah. Well, thoughts?
I was just listening to you recap this movie that nobody's ever heard of and nobody will watch, realizing
I hope not.
We've spent multiple hours of our lives now, embedded in this thing, wondering what we were doing with our lives, why we're doing this project at all, wondering if we've made a mistake starting podcasting back in 2015. Was that a mistake? It may have been. It led us to this point. This is not a good point to be.
It's not great.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about anything.
Yeah, it's honestly a confusing place to be.
My final thoughts on this movie was, I think somewhere under the trash, under the bad dialogue, the bad acting, I think there was a movie that a competent person with a decent budget could have made that might have been good for the 90s.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's like, I don't know, there's about 2/3 of an idea in this movie. Like, okay, you've got for-profit prisons, VR surviving the game scenario. You can kind of there's like a ground that you could work with.
You know
But-
what? This movie, I believe it passes the Bechdel test. The two doctors
Oh, that's true.
have a conversation for about 15 seconds, 30 seconds. I don't know how
that's
long
true.
the Bechdel test has to last. It's probably more like a 2-minute scene. That's interesting when you think about it. Yeah, there was. It felt more cyberpunk than Universal Soldier, absolutely. Even though a lot of it was weird history hopping.
It certainly, it certainly was more cyberpunk than Universal Soldier. It is, however, hobbled by the fact that basically everything about this movie is incredibly incompetent.
Yeah, that's the sad part.
Had the screenwriter, I forget his name, Christian Ingvortsen, handed the script off to a good writer, you could have pretty easily made a decent film, a half decent film out of this. He's also not a good director.
No.
The scenes, even though clearly they spent money on going places, which is kind of a big deal in cheap film. He breaks a lot of the real basic cardinal rules in how to compose a film, just having characters cut, they're moving right to left in one shot and then immediately in the next shot they're moving left to right just from a hard cut, and there's all sorts of dumb shit this guy just does. It's just basic rules of how to compose film.
Yeah.
Most of the performances are not good.
No, particularly the lead. Will is just an unlikable, weird-looking, thin goatee having nobody.
Yeah, I do. I mean, this movie probably would have been 10 times better had Terry Serpico been the lead.
Yeah.
Although
Not with the mustache.
Yeah.
Although arguably the mustache is a better facial hair choice than Will's thin goatee.
Yeah, it's kind of offensive.
I think the guy who played Stu would have been a better lead. I found him to be a much more compelling actor.
I agree. I do not know what J. Gregory Smith had on J. Christian Ingvortsen. Maybe it's the J at the beginning of the name.
Maybe they're just best friends and wanted to help. He wanted him to give him a spot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a really hard to watch lead actor. Did not help.
And just it's if directing is directing actors, that he failed at that.
Yeah. But I really like the idea. I mean, I think the concept of a for-profit prison using VR and then selling, the most dangerous game style manhunts has legs. I would like to watch that done well, and I think it would be interesting. But this was definitely interesting.
It's because pretty much only because of Terry Serpico, this movie is better than it should be.
Yeah.
Because he fucking understands the assignment and is just, dicking around.
He chews scenery. He has fun. Even the character that he's supposed to be having fun, he's the only character in the movie having fun, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's not really much else to say. I don't regret watching it. It was kind of fun to drink some beers and watch on a Friday evening or whenever the hell we did it.
Yeah.
That'll be out soon on the main feed, and hopefully already or very soon on the Patreon feed.
Yeah.
And I guess that's a wrap on Cybervengeance.
Do we have to do the stupid ratings for this?
Absolutely.
All right.
The fuck do you think this is? Sorry for my language. I don't know what came over me.
Oh, no problem.
I'm writing it down. Cyber V story. As I was saying, I think there's a story there. I don't think it was executed well, so I don't know what exactly the rating should be for, execution or concept. I'm going to split it down the middle, and I'm going to give it a 3. Think that's too high?
No, I think that's fair. I mean, I think that's a pretty good Yeah, that's about where I was going to come down. I was kind of right in that region.
Yeah. Influence? I mean,
0.
there's 0 is the lowest we can go. If we could go lower, we would.
Wait, is this film?
Oh, wait, we already mentioned that The Matrix ripped off the concept of Neo from Will Singleton, so maybe we should.
And is this the film that made it so Carhartt was like a fashion brand?
maybe it brought Carhartt into the zeitgeist. No, this film inspired nothing.
I am honestly surprised that we, having now watched it, I am honestly surprised we know a human who has also watched this.
Of course, Mike has seen it. It blows my mind what he's seen.
Yeah,
but so this episode's for him and him alone.
Yeah, pretty much.
Sorry, everyone else.
I mean, hey, if you if you get at us, and you really want to watch it, and especially if you're a longtime listener, DM us and we'll send you the link.
Yeah, or you can Google it.
We will not guarantee your cybersecurity.
No, it's like 8th or 9th choice on Google if you really want to see it. Prescience. This is a category I've been thinking about kind of modifying. Instead of like how well did it predict the future, more like how likely do we think its predictions are. It's dystopia, you know what I mean? Because many of these don't actually necessarily take place in the future, but and I think this dystopia, or at least how likely do you think it will be given our current dystopian nightmare we live in?
Honestly, this one might be pretty high.
Yeah, it's higher than some we've watched. I could see a virtual prison happening at some point.
Yeah, if only because I don't think the movie had that much money, so they didn't shoot very much in the real world.
Yeah.
I bet it would have been really hard for them to resist the urge had they, if they had a bunch of street scenes and shit to, I don't know, bolt fucking propellers on people's faces or something.
Right. They did have, they found some pretty imposing looking buildings and shot outside of. That was about all of the real world we got. Yeah. But I do think in our version of this future, instead of just like the prisoners just languishing away in virtual prisons, they'd be put to work writing code or ad copy for some, prisoners can't just sit there. They've got to work.
Manscaped.
That's our legal slavery that we still allow in this country.
Woohoo.
Good country. Love it. So I'm actually going to give the prescience rating I'm going to give it a 5, I think.
Yeah.
I think it's plausible.
Yeah, it's moments from plausible. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's actually a good rating too.
Okay. Style?
0.
0?
No, wait. Ribeye necklace 1.
All right, you're giving it 1 for the ribeye necklace. I'm giving it 1 for that curly mustache.
Oh,
giving it 2.
Yeah.
I'm giving it 2.
Yeah, okay. Okay, 2. Yeah, 2 for ribeye necklace and curly mustache.
All right.
And Terry Serpico's Baby Blues.
Those baby blues, baby. All right, I'm not going to add the total up. The total doesn't matter. You've heard what we said. On the 1 to 5 hand raiser scale, I don't know, man. This is hard.
I'm giving it 1 mustache.
one mustache?
On the hand raiser scale, yes.
I feel like I want to give it more than a 1, but
dude, there has to be a floor.
I think we can go lower. We have the sequel.
I agree.
And I didn't.
I mean,
I'm giving it a 1.5. That's the same as I gave Universal Soldier. I liked it as much as Universal Soldier.
Huh. I don't know. I don't know. I'm the fact that this was just so poorly done, I think maybe weighs a little more heavily on me than it does you.
All right. I'm going 1.25. Okay. 1.25.
Okay. Yeah.
There's got to be something. I know there's something worse than this. I got to leave 1 for something truly bad.
Yeah, there is the possibility of 0 hand raisers.
Yes. Oh, that's true. I guess there is a possibility. So maybe I should give it. I'm gonna stick at the 1.25.
Null hand raisers. Like it's just a stump.
It's just a the end of a wrist.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we did it. It's over now. I
We
don't
did
know.
it.
I don't know. Was that worth it? I don't know.
Was it worth? Let's see. I spent 3 hours watching the movie, 3 hours and 8 minutes watching the movie.
Mhm.
And now we have spent 1 hour 31 minutes recording this.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to probably drop an hour or two editing.
I'm going to go with no, it was not
Nope,
worth it.
not worth it. All right.
No. Hey, you know something that is worth it?
What?
Celebrating our friend Sean's birthday.
Yes. I had a better segue, but you jumped in ahead of me.
Oh, motherfucker.
That's okay. Yes. Our buddy Sean, who you heard on our Tron episode, longtime friend of ours since we started podcasting. And it was his birthday yesterday as we record this. And we would like to ask you to check out his Bandcamp because he makes music and it's good shit.
And I mean, you know, if you're feeling really super generous, he put an Amazon wish list out, or a link to an Amazon wish list on his Twitter, which, you know, has supplies for the cats that he takes care of. So, you know, consider it if you got a little, you know, money or free Amazon bucks burning a hole in your pocket.
Yeah,
Send him some cat food.
I used them, but I did have some free Amazon bucks at one point. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, also Happy May Day, Crush Capital.
Yes. Happy May Day, Crush Capital. Excuse me. One other thing I wanted to talk about. I wanted to thank our patrons because we didn't on the Patreon episode. And I wanted to read their names. We have a couple of them now.
Yay.
So starting from the first, Mike, Sean, Jeffrey, Alicia, Matt, Sue, Eddie, and Powers209. Thank you for everybody who is supporting us on Patreon. It all helps. It all helps.
Yeah, that's very cool. I don't know. You have kept me updated on, you know, when we get new patrons and stuff, but to hear them all listed in order like that, it kind of sounds like a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's
more than it's kind of I was expecting, I don't know, 4, 5, even though I know there's more than 4 or 5. Yeah. But yeah, thanks.
Thanks, everybody. That's gonna do her, right?
Yeah, thank God.
If you want to join all those other patrons, you can go to patreon.com/hightechlowlife. That would be cool.
That'd be good. That'd be pretty cool. What are we watching next week?
Next week, as we've discussed, we are going to watch Cyberpunk 2077: Edge Runners. Correct?
Yes, I believe that is the plan. I should get on it.
I have not started it either.
Me neither.
I don't know for sure yet. I want to leave the possibility open that it might be a 2-parter. It is a whole season of TV.
Yes.
So I don't know. We'll either do that next week and then the following week do Mona Lisa Overdrive, or we might stretch them both out into 2-parters. We'll see how it goes.
Fun times. Yeah. Well, we'll see you then. Hopefully, okay, based on the IMDb rating, Cyberpunk Edge Runners has an 8.3, while the film we just talked about has a 3.4. So, I'm hoping it'll be more fun and entertaining.
3.4 is very generous.
It is very generous and at the same time disastrously low. I don't know if I've ever looked at something on IMDb with numbers that low that wasn't something like, I don't know, a superhero movie with a female lead.
or like a Disney cartoon where they made the main character not white.
Yeah.
True. Well, thanks for hanging out with us while we did it. And until then, I'm going to steal it from Josh. You can suck my fuck you. Great
Suck
line.
my fuck you.
A great line from this film.
Because that makes sense.
It's future lingo, man.
Yeah.
All right. See ya.
Bye.
This has been the High Tech Low Life podcast. Find us on Twitter at Johnny60seconds. Email us at hightechlowlifepodcast@gmail.com. And find us on Patreon at patreon.com/hightechlowlife. Theme music provided by Nia Lore at nialore.com. Thank you for listening.
Excuse me, Robo. Any special message for all the kids watching at home?
Stay out of trouble.